Do you believe that property taxes in Moscow are too high? And if so, what steps would you take to see them lowered or the rate of increase diminished?
So I do think that the property taxes in Moscow are too high, and I think that that they continue to grow at such a fast rate. One of the things that I think is very important is that we actually are very transparent as a city. I think that that having all the information out there is the best way for you guys to make decisions. And had we known, and this is what I've understood from several of the people that I've talked to, we knew that the property taxes were coming up, or that we're going to raise this year before we put out the bond for the police station. And it wasn't really made public, so to speak, until after the bond had passed. And I think it's an important thing for you guys to understand, or for the citizens to understand, okay, they're going up, we better think about this bond. What do we want to do with it? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for the police and taking care of them. They need certain things to keep us safe and protected. But I think transparency is a big thing. As far as bringing the property taxes down, I think the biggest key is that we control our spending. If we, I was looking over some of the budgets and stuff, and I was kind of surprised at when you're looking at them, one certain portion of it says, okay, I can get this done for $8,000 this year. Okay, well, let's propose 10. Okay, we approved 10. If we can get it done for 8, why are we proposing more? Because it's just putting more of a burden on the citizens here in Moscow. And I think that's the biggest way to start bringing property taxes back down, is to control the spending that we've actually got going out in the city.
Thank you very much. Ms. Laffman.
I think living on a fixed income, or living in any kind of income, and your property taxes increase, makes people alarmed. At the same time, we live here in a city that has lots of needs. We have street issues, we've got lighting issues, we've got housing issues. My question is, do we really have fluff in our budget? And my answer to that is, I want someone to show me where that fluff is. Because in fact, one of the difficulties is property values, only 25% of what we pay for in our property taxes go to the city. Of that amount that comes to the city, only 7.9% is the amount that we have in our budget from property taxes. So we should think about that. Who here has built a house and had that building ever come under budget? It always goes over budget. Every estimate I think I've ever had has a contractor charging for something else, or the prices go up, or there's new tariffs going on. They go up, and so we need to make sure when we budget, we in fact can account for the fact the cost of that may be higher than what we expected the year before. It probably goes up. In addition to that, I feel like I want to know specifically what it is that we plan to cut. I'm going back to that same issues, because I believe every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. And when we say yes, let's drop property taxes, you tell me what you want to drop out of our budget. Because I have spent time talking to people in the city who work here, looking at that budget, and I don't see a lot of fluff. And we took a lot of time during this last budget issue to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As the moderator, let me remind you that this is a yes or no question. The answer is yes or no question. Do you think property taxes are too high in Moscow? I think you just laughed. You got the gist of it. Yeah, Ms. Keller.
Well, I hope I get a little more than just a yes after that. Goodness.
Oh, yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Please do.
You know, taxes are tough, right? I mean, gosh, wouldn't it be great to have that extra money? God, I work at a nonprofit. I sure don't make very much money. My mom's a retired school teacher. She sure doesn't get very much money. We share a house together. We have a really expensive dog because she seems to be sick all the time. We just don't have much. But you know what? Moscow is an amazing place. We have a little higher quality of life here. Sometimes our property taxes might seem a little higher. I don't think they are. When I think of what we have, I'm grateful for it. We went through an agonizing process to decide whether or not to have a new police station built, right? And the public said yes, and I was a part of that. I'm glad that happened, but it was a tough decision. I had to do a lot of research because I knew things might increase, and I don't have much to increase on, honestly. I love my job, but boy, not making it much. So it's tough when I think about the taxes going up. That said, we do have to pay for things, and we aren't getting a ton from the state. And I think that the city has done a good job with their budget. I've looked it over, and I looked it over again, and I look it over more, and I'll keep looking over it. But right now, I'm very satisfied with where we are, because Maureen was absolutely right in terms of, yeah, things never do come in on budget. What looks great 6 months ago, it's going to go up a little bit. We have to be able to be prepared for that. And I'm glad there's some preparation going into that. Some good, smart thinking about looking ahead to the future, looking ahead to say, oh, do we think this is going to increase? Probably it is. Maybe we should budget for this amount instead. I'm grateful for our street department, our fire department, our police department. I love our parks. I love that I can go down the street in the wintertime, and almost all the time they're plowed, at least around Main Street. They may have some berms, but they're plowed. I'm grateful for the hard work that the city people put in to make this town great, and I don't know what we would cut, and I'm grateful for what we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferris.
So, yes, they're too high. Do any of you want your taxes to go up further? No.
I guess so, yes.
But the thing that we need to understand about taxes, as has been mentioned, they're paying for something. So no one wants to be spending more on taxes, but we also need to understand that it is important to be paying for the services that we receive as a city. So when we're talking about the more recent changes that have been made with the police station, with the increase in taxation, because we need to have higher salaries for our officers, we need to understand that that actually in some ways is saving us money. Because if you look at the salaries for police officers and you look at the competition around us, then you understand that it's very easy for us to lose police officers to those other areas, which means that we lose out on the money of training them. We train them up and suddenly they're gone. So what we need to understand is what exactly are our taxes paying for, and how can we make sure that we are maximizing that dollar value. So in order to bring them down or keep them at a manageable place, we need to make sure that we are looking through our budget and having fresh eyes on that budget. All of you probably know when you put something into your budget, it's that much easier to put it in the next month, and the month after that, or the next year, right? And we want to make sure that as we do that, we're not taking it for granted that those costs all should be in the following budget. We want to have fresh eyes, we want to look through and make sure that we, as a city, are being fiscally responsible. We've been very blessed to have a pretty fiscally responsible city. The work that the city council has done is really solid in that area. And so that's something, I mean, we look at the city around us and it's a wonderful place, and it's a wonderful place to live, partially because we have a responsible group. And so I want to maintain that.
Thank you, Ms. Ferris. Mr. Rakitas.
I didn't know it was my turn. Yeah, the taxes are too high. I got 4 kids and a wife and a dog and a tortoise to feed, so certainly I believe they are. I think one of the great things about rotating city council is that you bring fresh eyes in to look at stuff. Same way that we're looking at housing, do we really need a 3,000 square foot house? Do we need this? Can we live in 800 feet? Can we live in 700 feet? I think it's good for the budget to be looked at, scrutinized. I don't in any way think I'm going to come in and just have this magic wand that cures everything. I don't. But I think it's just good to have people in that are frugal, come in and just be able to look at the budget. I've looked at it. It's complicated. It's there's a lot of stuff in there. So a lot of it for me is going to be educating. What is this? Do we really need this or not? In the same way that I run my home, I focus on plumbing, heating, electrical, security, and then we go to the aesthetics after those foundational principal aspects of my home are set. Then I can work on that. And I think it's really important that we have a beautiful city. I do. I love parks. My kids, if I take my 4-year-old there to all the parks in the town, she just loves it. And so I know we spend the money on, we buy things, and I think it's just good for us to examine that and see, is there a way that we can lower it? Is there a way that we can cut costs? I think that's just plain sensible that we would want to do that and see if there's new ways to look at things. Get $2 at every dollar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zabala.
As an audience member, I'm sure you're like, excellent, a yes or no question. But we have to answer. It's such a hard one. I'm gonna say no, but I will say, so when I first started talking about running for office 2 years ago, my friends would tease me and they'd go, well, what are you gonna do for me? You know, why do you want this job? And I would be like, I'm gonna go to so many meetings for you. And now, that is true, but also I think it is really spending a lot of time looking through every line of the budget. And I can tell you that this year in particular, we went through, again, line by line, and it is something that we should be doing every year, but this year we were especially looking at, okay, so the city has decided, citizens here have decided to pass a bond. Then we're looking at taking the 3% that cities are allowed to raise property taxes every year. And then we're looking at taking what's called the foregone amount, which is a little pool of money that we have that's basically a savings account. So if we decide not to take the full 3% every year, there's some accumulation in there. And it's one of the only pools of money that the city can use if some big project comes up or if we are at a budget shortfall. So it's really important to have something there to be very considerate of how to spend it. And I can say, does anybody here remember that headline, Moscow taxes may go up as much as 25%? Anybody remember that one? Yeah. It was something where, for me, I ended up being the only no vote on the budget last year. And that was something that I went back and forth with and thought about very extensively. And the reason that I ended up being a no vote was that I thought that we could address the problems that we were looking at specifically in terms of adequate salaries for our staff. The reason that we took that amount was for police raises and for raises for the pool staff. And when we crunched the numbers, I thought that we could get to a competitive place that put people in the same ranking without taking that pool, which is why I ended up being the no vote. So it's something that I feel for everyone, and that's a stop.
Thank you very much for honoring the stop. We've gotten a suggestion. I want to take a poll of the audience. Here's democracy in action.